All right, what's going on, everybody? I know a lot of you out there are training hard and making really good progress, and the last thing that you want is chronic aches and pains that would slow you down, or even worse, create an injury that just takes you out of the game for a really long time. Ignoring the small issues now could lead to bigger problems later. So taking the time to correct these issues now can keep you on track to prevent any major setbacks that could happen in the future. And I just want to share with you a recent issue that I've had and how I'm addressing it and what you can do if you're dealing with something similar. For the past several weeks, I've been pushing my arm training very hard, perhaps too hard as it turns out. At first, I just noticed a little pain around my elbow, right on the outside on the lateral aspect of my elbow after doing heavy tricep extensions. It wasn't too bad, so I just ignored it and kept on with my training as the pain would fade away by the next day. But after about a week of this, the pain started radiating down my forearm and into my wrist. It got so bad that doing heavy extensions were just impossible, and doing daily activity things like even pushing a door open, I couldn't even do it with this arm. The pain was just radiating all right down here. I just couldn't even use this arm for a few days. So what my mistake was not addressing this issue immediately as soon as it came up. I initially ignored the early warning signs of the slight ache and pain that I had, even though it was slight. We're all biased to ourselves and think, oh, we'll be fine. But I should have stopped and addressed the issue and looked into the root cause of it so that I can correct it. And for me, the culprit was my form on one of my main exercises that I've been doing for heavy extensions, and that's the Smith J-arm press. And I'll talk about the changes I'm making to my form later, but first I want to go over the rehab routine that I've been doing for the past week that's helping me get back on track. So the past week I've been doing really a simple routine every day, and after probably about 2 days, 50% of the pain was already gone. So I can say that this has worked at least pretty well for me. So this consisted of mainly 3 exercises. The first being banded extensions. I would just wrap a band around the top of my rack, and I started off by using multiple grips, being neutral, prone, and supine. I ended up just using the neutral grip as that felt the most comfortable for me. And I would perform 50 reps at a faster tempo to just get as much blood into the tricep as possible. And I would avoid locking out fully to reduce any further strain on the tendons or ligaments, as the goal for this for me was just to warm up the joint and the muscle and to just pump as much blood into the area as I can. So just think of it as doing like pump work. The second exercise I would do was banded curls. So I would stand on the band and just curl with a neutral grip. The reason for the neutral grip is to avoid any unnecessary strain on the biceps tendon and wrist extensors, which was hurting for me. And being in that neutral grip, you're not going to stretch out the bicep tendon or use as much wrist extensor. So that's why I left it in the neutral grip. And again, I would perform 50 reps with these with a faster tempo. The final exercise I would do was wrist extensions. Obviously with these I would target the wrist extensors, which are often the weak link that would contribute to elbow pain. If you've heard of golfer's elbow or tennis elbow, this is due to a repetitive force put on the wrist extensors that is just an overload of force that that person wasn't used to. So it just created swelling in the tendon around the elbow and ligaments, but often being the weak link was the wrist extensors. So what I would do here is I would get a weight plate. I would use a 10-pound weight plate. I'd put the band through the middle of it, wrap it around the end of the barbell, and you got to loop it around a couple times so the band actually wraps around itself. And then I would just roll the bar back towards me, so I'm working the wrist extensors. I would complete 5 cycles of this where I bring the weight up all the way to the top at least 5 times, and then I would repeat this circuit, and I would do that 3 times. So after, like I said before, after just a few days of this, my elbow pain was cut in half, and the pain became more isolated towards my wrist. Like with each day, the pain slowly lessened from the elbow down. So each day it hurt, my whole forearm was hurting. The next day it was here down, then it was here down, all the way until it got only the wrist. And I'm at a point now about just over a week later, and it's like 95% better. Maybe my wrist is a little sore, but it's pretty much almost 100% better. And the key here on why I think this works is it's just simply blood flow, in that it does one of 2 things. The blood, there's nutrients in the blood, and if you have a sore area in the body, putting blood in that area is providing that area with the nutrients it needs for it to heal. The second thing is that it provides immediate relief by putting blood in that area, and that you can use that arm almost normally, like immediately during the warm-up and after the warm-up. My arm felt actually pretty normal. And this experience also made me realize how often some of us reach for Advil or Tylenol when we feel sore. But honestly, if you think about it, for many aches and pains, you might not need medication, you might just need movement. Now, of course, some situations require medical attention and medication, but I'm just referring to general soreness. I think oftentimes targeting muscles through exercises can often do the trick. So once the pain started improving, this was about around day 3. I think day 3 I implemented doing light dumbbell movements to gently load the tendons. To basically, this was my way of progressing the healing process. So there were a few exercises I would use dumbbells. I used the easy bar and I used cables. So with the dumbbells, I did a standing dumbbell curl. For the cable, I did the overhead rope extension, but I did it from where the cable was set to the highest setting, and I would bend over and extend downward. I just felt this position to be the least stressful on my elbow and forearm. And then the easy bar, I did obviously the overhead extension, and I would use just the bar, which my bar weighs about 10 pounds. And then also for dumbbells, I would do the overhead press. And for reference, my dumbbells with no plates on it weigh 10 pounds, so I wouldn't do anything more than 10 pounds. Even start lighter than that if you need to. Do 5-pound dumbbells. And my focus with doing these movements was I focused on a slower tempo than I did for the warm-up, and I did full range of motion, and I was really focusing on contracting the muscle and almost doing like the mind-muscle connection kind of technique where you're really just feeling it, letting the arm, fully extend out to curl back, and just kind of doing it slowly, because you've already warmed it up. You've already done your 150 banded pushdowns and curls and wrist extensors. You're all warmed up. Now you just want to slowly load the tendon ligament with very, very light weight and build up to it. So getting into the Smith machine jam press that I was doing, this was a big part of my training for probably about the last 2 months. But obviously after this, I'm needing to adjust my technique and how I'm going to go about this lift. So there's really 2 things I've learned here. The first thing being the elbow position. Now, traditionally, the jam press is done with more of a narrow elbow to your body. So your elbows, your arms are more parallel to your body like this, where I was letting them flare out a bit. Obviously, a little bit of flare is going to be natural, especially on your, based on how long your arms are in comparison to your forearm, to your upper arm. Everyone's going to look a little bit different, but I was letting it flare out too much. And this was intentional. I knew that wasn't really the JM press. It was kind of becoming a little bit of a close grip bench press that I just did to my chin. And I was really just doing this for experimentation. But so this led into the second thing that I found, is that the range of motion was also an issue. So I was bringing the bar all the way down to my chin, which is what you're traditionally supposed to do. However, I felt at the point of about maybe 70% of the way down, the tension that was on my tricep pretty much just transferred straight to my elbow. So every time I got to here, it just went from tricep to elbow, and I would just force it back up. So the reason I flared out is because it actually felt really good. I did feel a good stretch on my tricep on the top half, but the bottom half, it shifted everything to my elbows. So moving forward, I plan to go back to traditional, elbows more forced in towards your body. And also I'm going to stop the range of motion as I feel the tension is peaked on my tricep, as it's stretched fully, and if I went further, it would just be all elbow at that point. So basically, instead of just aiming, the bar has to touch you every time. I think taking a step back and looking at the form for that, the bar touching your body is kind of just an arbitrary metric when you think about it. I'm not saying full range of motion is bad, but in this instance for me, it kind of was bad. Even if my elbows were tucked in, I would still be way back here. And sure, with super light weight, that would be fine. But if you go heavy, it's just a lot of strain on the elbows. So if you're someone who's dealing with elbow pain, forearm pain, or wrist pain currently, or really any pain in general, I would encourage you to take the time to heal and rebuild. Even if this just means for a couple weeks, you are just doing a rehab program to bring it back. Because remember, the goal of bodybuilding is to build your body up, not tear it down. We are bodybuilders. We're literally building our body. So if your body's telling you that something is weak, you should build it up, make it stronger, so that you can continue to build your body. And once you are recovered, you want to make sure that your programming is on point. And I would encourage you to check out this video here, where I talk about programming lifts to break through plateaus so that you can keep seeing growth. And if you take care of your body, it'll take care of your gains.